Welcome to Life Map with Dr. Matt Jensen, a podcast dedicated to empowering teens and young adults. Join us on a journey of self-discovery as we tackle overcoming obstacles and challenges while igniting your true potential in rising to the best version of yourself. Here's your host, Dr. Matt Jensen.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Life Map with Dr. Matt Jensen. I'm pleased and thrilled, beyond thrilled really, that you have tuned back in for another episode with me and this great journey that we're on called life. I hope, and I really hope that parents, if you're listening, that you're sharing these episodes with your teenagers, even your college students or young adult age kids, because I'm going to talk to them for a minute because you guys, you're the ones I want to reach. You're the ones that I want to get face to face with. You're the ones I really want to help because I know this patch of life can be so extremely difficult and it can be so full of unknowns, but even more importantly, challenges and obstacles, right? So anyway, I'm excited that you joined us and I am just thrilled that you're tuning in. I'm starting to get a little bit of interaction on social media. Thank you for reaching out. I've got gear on your way. But again, think through this topic today and send me your questions or your comments. And I'm going to ask you a specific question at the end of our episode. So once again, thanks for joining us. I'm really pleased. I know I say this every week, but I'm really excited about our topic today. And I'm going to open up our topic by saying something that might be a little bit shocking to you. In this episode, I'm going to show you how a simple tweet or Instagram post can either take away a life or save a life. That's right. I'm going to talk about some of the more intricate, shall we say, levels of understanding truly what's going on with social media. The reason I decided to bring this up now is because I'm always on the lookout for great stories, inspirational stories, and unfortunately, stories that end up, the better way to say it is, can be really good life lessons for each one of us. I was reading the other day and I came across a story in the Deseret News in Utah about how the state legislature, stay with me, young adults and teens, I promise I'm not going to stay in government here, but they're debating and considering a couple of House bills that have to do with further legislating and putting more parameters on the uses of social media. And they talked about this just heartbreaking story about this young man named Dexton Obray. I'm going to have the listing for these stories in the show notes. So if you're interested, you want to read more, just go to the show notes and you'll find the listings there. But this young man, Dexton Obray, was 14 years old, and his parents and people that knew him described him as a kind-hearted teenager. In fact, get this, he used to go around to the people in his high school and he used to give Valentines to all of the girls. And he was just this nice kid. But tragedy struck. On his social media accounts, the algorithms that are built in started to catch on to what got reactions from Dexton. And they started to lead him down a path and bring him content related to depression and self-harm. Now, this is the hard part of this episode, and it wasn't too long later before Dexton died tragically through suicide. His parents later found this disturbing content on his phone and on his devices, and they were there to testify at this hearing to help get laws passed that protect you and me through the harmful effects of social media. Now, let me just reassure each one of us. I am not here to tell you social media is bad. I'm not here to tell you that you need to change. Well, I am going to tell you need to change, but I'm not here to tell you that you need to completely get rid of it in your life. I want this to be an eye-opening. I want this to be a wake-up call, not just for you teenagers and young adults, but to parents. Because listen, I'm here to tell you, social media is here to stay, okay? It's not going anywhere. We're not going to just magically get rid of the bad stuff. It's here to stay. Now, I guess I can restate part of that last thing. Hopefully, with united voices and legislatures across the country, we can start to make common sense solutions that will lead to positive effects for social media. And I truly believe social media, when it first came out, was supposed to unite people, right? It was a way to connect people. Imagine grandparents and faraway friends and family that could now easily tap into pictures, videos, and live virtual communication. It was phenomenal. Well, we know that the demons that exist in this world like to sink their teeth and their claws into anything good. And that's what's happened with social media. And this whole dark underworld has grown and is seeking and leaking its way. More than that, it's penetrating its way into our daily lives. So how do we not end up down that terribly difficult and tragic path of Dexton Obray? Well, here's where it starts to get good. So we've talked about the bad, but let me just end that segment with, we all need to recognize, I don't care if you're 12 years old listening or if you're 80-year-old listening, we have to be proactive at protecting ourselves, our families, our homes, our communities against the demons, that I like to call it, that are out there in this cyber world. And let me tell you, their easiest tools to getting through: Snapchat, Instagram. They get through. They find ways to take us down the proverbial, even more than the proverbial, evil rabbit holes that exist below the surface that none of us even like to think about, but it's there. And if we're not careful, we are taking one step closer each time to that dark rabbit hole. And so as parents, as youth, we just need to understand that it's there and not pretend that it doesn't. Not tell ourselves, well, I don't get involved with that kind of content. I know better than to give my personal information to strangers online. That's great. And I hope that we're all doing these things, but we just need to be aware and constantly be on the defense. In parents, it's more than just putting safeguards or restrictions in place. It's more than that cute little way to put screen time restrictions on your children's phones. And teenagers and young adults, it's being aware that those dangers are there. And together, we just need to have common sense solutions and be willing to make changes. So sorry, I got a little bit excited there, but I'm just passionate about this because I don't know about you, but I'm getting more and more hurt every time I read stories like Dexton Obray, and my heart goes out to his family and to his friends and family. And I don't want you or me not just to not be the next Dexton Obray, but let's not be the next family members of the next Dexton. Let's be aware of what we're putting out. Let's be aware of what we're taking in so that we can be a source for good for our friends and family and those that we engage with, like, follow, friend, whatever you want to call it, on any of our digital platforms. Now, back to the opening of getting back to the happy part of this podcast episode. In that same article, it then talks about a young lady named Liddy Johnson. And let me just tell you, if I could hug Liddy Johnson, and maybe I'll reach out to her someday, but if I could give her a pat on the back and tell her to talk a little louder, I would, because she was on the same path as Dexton. Okay. Liddy Johnson is also detailed in that same article, so go read it. But she recalls the first time she got a cell phone and being drawn into this entirely new digital world, like many teenagers or even preteens and kids do when they get to their very first cell phone, device, iPad, whatever it is. Whenever they get there, they feel that draw, that digital draw to find out more and to explore this amazing new world. Well, she started to go down the path. Her parents did the same thing that most of us do. We put screen time restrictions. We had time limitations. Even with that, she, like most other teenagers, not with negative or evil intentions, but she found ways around the restrictions. And let me tell you, all of us know that they exist, right? All of us know that they exist. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not here to bag on screen time restrictions, on parental controls. They are a must, but they should only be the minimal requirement, right? Communication between us with our teens, between teens and their parent, is the only time-tested, true solution to overcoming the pitfalls that exist in this digital world. But let's move on with Liddy Johnson. I'm going to come back to give you my social media challenge and solutions at the end. So you don't want to leave. I've got some great solutions for you young adults, you teenagers and parents that you can work together So you can still enjoy social media, but with a greater safety net of protection. Okay, so let's go on with Liddy. So Liddy was going down this same path. She noticed that she started to crave validation from strangers, not just people she knew. She was finding herself every day checking to see if she was getting more followers, checking to see if she was getting comments, changing her photos, putting filters on her photos. Does all this sound familiar? Yeah, it happens so commonly. But hats off to Liddy because she began to recognize the signs of anxiety, the signs of depression, and even, yes, even Liddy started to have suicidal thoughts. Why? Was it because she was being that this whole idea of a dark world was being highlighted and was being glamorized? No, it's because of that ever so powerful influence of comparing ourselves to others. Now, if you're new to my podcast, I strongly recommend you go back and listen to my first one or two or even three episodes because I start this whole journey, this whole life map journey that I outline in my book. By the way, quick plug for my book, Life Map for Teens. I should have also put or young adults and travel tips for your journey through life and navigating the hurdles and the hazards of life. But I talk in depth about what self-perception is about and how our self-esteem is influenced. I beg you and I ask you, go watch those first few episodes because they are critical to understanding who we are, what makes us tick, and the truest sources of happiness and satisfaction in life. But hats off to Liddy because she began to recognize those signs and she went to her parents, she went and got help. And hats off to her because so many, the addictive pull of social media is even stronger than drugs. There are studies out there that show that social media, video games, all this digital integration we've had in our lives can be as addictive as drug abuse. But hats off because Liddy recognized it and she went and got help. And she started to make changes in her life. She went from social media to other meaningful sources of happiness and satisfaction to her. And she started to turn to therapy. She got a therapist. This therapist helped her turn to art and music. And now she gets her emotional highs through meaningful activities. Now, I want to share with you a quote that Liddy shared in this article. She says, listen up, everybody. This is amazing. And it's so simple. That's what's so beautiful about this quote is it's not this in-depth, psychological ideation that formed. No, it's a simple common sense thought. Listen to what she said. She says, I thought that social media would make me happy, but it didn't. She goes on to say, the continuation of the use of social media eventually led to anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts. My personality changed. Okay. Now, Liddy and Dexton are no different in how they got involved. Each one of us can, if we're not careful, if we become more enthralled in the throes of social media, we're going to find ourselves on that same path. But is our path going to go to the right and take us to the solutions and help that we need, like it did for Liddy? Or is it going to go down the left road, the wrong road, to take us down to the point of no return, like Dexton? But here's the great news. This is where I want to provide some hope and some great inspirational thoughts, because there are ways and there are solutions that aren't as difficult as we might think that can help us take the road that Liddy took, the road of recovery and health back into our lives and a balanced approach with social media. Okay. But let me just give you some examples before I get to my personal challenge and my personal way of helping you change the way that you use social media. And by the way, in my book, Life Map for Teens, we go over this in depth. I strongly recommend it's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble. Go order yourself a copy. But anyway, I go over this in depth in the book, but let me give you some examples of how social media can actually be a force for good in our lives. It can be one of the ways that we unlock our superpower. It can be ways to help us unlock our talents, our genius, and our way to truly make a mark, if not on the world, then within our own spheres of existence, with our own friends and family. I'm going to take you to a story of a lady named Angela Patterson. Okay. Angela Patterson, believe it or not, she is a PhD. Okay. She has a doctorate degree and she studies this stuff. But recently, she explained in an article, again, it's in my show notes in Psychology Today, she shared the story of how one of her childhood friends recently posted a letter, or not a letter, but a note from her childhood, from when she was just in middle school and elementary school, of a note, back and forth note that her and her best friend passed back and forth. This best friend of hers, I guess, keeps everything. She keeps mementos, notes from when she was a teen. And for those parents that are listening, do you remember what the social media vehicle was back in the 80s and 70s and 90s, even before the days of the internet? That's right. It was paper and pencil. And I remember getting notes from, yes, believe it or not, girls thought I was cute when I was in middle school or elementary school. And I would get notes passed to me and I would pass notes back and forth. Uh, Guys seemed to be not as excited or interesting in passing notes, but we all got involved somehow. But that was the social media before. It was notes that were passed with ink and paper. Well, Angela's best friend kept all these notes, and like 30 years later, she posted a screenshot of a note that her and her friend passed each other, innocent, cute little messages from 30 years ago. And she posted it on Instagram, and it caused a laugh and a giggle and a rekindling of good times between her and her friend from childhood. Now, do you see what a great way to use social media to bring memories, thoughts of the past, lessons of the past? It was a great solution. And it was a great way. In fact, in that article that she actually wrote, it says social media. Now, listen to this, everybody. We may understand this principle, but I'm going to bring it front and center. But she says social media use is associated with increased well-being with young people when they engage actively, directly with followers with whom they have relationships with. They actively create and share content and they use it to maintain or to be entertained. So, did you catch what she said? She said that social media has been shown. And by the way, she had researchers participate in this study. It was fascinating. So, make sure you read it from that source in the show notes. But the researchers in this note that Miss Patterson shares says that social media can actually be a force for good. It can help us be more well-rounded when we use it as an adjunct way to build our relationships with people that we actually have relationships with. In other words, with your friends, your family, your faraway friends, your teachers, people that you already have a healthy relationships with. When you use it to share content with that inspires, builds, or whatever it is, social media can be a huge boost to well-being and well-roundedness. So ask yourself, is my social media content, is the way that I exchange with people online, is it for good? Is it for these kinds of things? Now, I recognize that there's many of you that I don't have a relationship with, right? There's a lot of you that either watch my podcast, listen to it, or you go to my social media accounts to see what we're posting. But I hope you would agree that my posts are meant to inspire. If you look at my background, what does it say? It says that it's meant to ignite, empower, and inspire. I want my content to be a source of the warm fuzzies for each of you. I hope it's a source and it helps to build you in a way that makes you want to tackle goals that are meaningful in your life, to spread good around you. That's why I'm doing this whole podcast. No, this may be surprising, but no, I don't have a corporate backing that's paying me thousands of dollars to do this podcast. No, I pay to put this podcast out because I want to help you have a source for good. Okay, I want to go on to just another couple of quick stories. Chris Stroud. This is an amazing story. And again, I keep saying I'm sounding like a broken record, I know, but check the stories out in my show notes. But Chris Strauss found himself in need of a kidney transplant. And after you got to have, right, you have to have certain matches with your blood type, your DNA type, right? All of this, that you can't just get anybody's kidney, right? And so he used the amazing reach of social media to reach out and to find a match for his kidney transplant. And he began a blog on Facebook, or he began a blog and using Facebook to reach people. And guess what? After his reach went out to enough people, he found donor responses from up to 19 people. Some of them were complete strangers or mere acquaintances, people that didn't even really know that well. Well, someone that Chris had never met in person turned out to be an ideal match. And they went on to have a successful kidney transplant. What a great source of good for social media. So ask yourself, are you subscribing to sources of content, people, and organizations that are trying to do good? These stories give me goosebumps because they're good. They're inspirational. They make me want to do good as compared to the type of content that Dexton and Liddy found themselves enthralled in that took them down the whole opposite road. And so we can get even better highs on social media when we're engaging with this type of content instead of the detrimental, addictive lows that are equally and powerfully addictive that take us down the road that we don't want. And in this, and I can't pronounce his name, but the guy who ended up donating the kidney was Scott Pakudaitis. I'm sorry, Scott, if you're listening to this and I got your name wrong, but in the article, it says social media, in fact, it says, in this case, social media magic worked. Chris has a healthy kidney now, thanks to Scott, Twitter, Facebook, and the inventor of the web. Isn't that a great thought? So social media, no, it's not all bad, and it can be a source for good, but we have to decide which way we're steering our social media ship. Are we taking it into the beautiful, calm, sunny waters, or are we steering it in to the stormy swells of evil that, while the curiosity in us grows, the end point is going to be disaster? One more story, and then I'm going to wrap things up. Another great story. In fact, this young lady has a website. She has turned her weaknesses into coaching and empowering others. Her name is Anne-Sophie Reinhardt. And I'm sorry, Anne-Sophie, if I got your name wrong. Reinhardt. She struggled with an eating disorder. Okay. She struggled with anorexia, and it began to interrupt her sleep. She battled this for literally a year, and it led to severe depression. And we know eating disorders, anorexia, bulimia, all these things. And let me tell you, I'll put insert, I don't have the best eating habits either. So I can absolutely 100% sympathize with her and people that have eating disorders. No, I don't have bulimia. I just eat way too much. I don't know if I'll get in trouble for saying this, but I eat too much Chick-fil-A and the likes, even though it's so good, right? We all love the sauce. Okay, sorry, I totally got distracted. But the point is this: she had a disorder that led to depression, anxiety, and other problems. She began to recognize that she was going down a road that was going to lead to disaster. And so she started looking online for solutions, just like Liddy Johnson did at the beginning. She was able to recognize where she was, and then she took steps. She found a solution through social media that provided support. It provided a solution that helped her recognize where true, meaningful happiness comes from. And actually, believe it or not, it was a podcast that she found, right? She found a podcast and the social media that goes with us that answered her questions and challenges. So she began to take things into her own hands, and she changed the influences in her life. And so she found her answers, and she did. She overcame her anorexia. She's overcome. Now, for those that struggle with anxiety, depression, we all know there's no 100% cure, right? Most of you know I suffer and I deal with depression and anxiety. But like many of you, and I don't mean this, and again, I tend to do this on a lot of my episodes, I will never minimize the difficult struggles that come with those terrible conditions because I know firsthand what it's like. But I'm a testament, along with Anne Sophia, along with Liddy, along with Chris, along with uh, uh, Angela, that social media can be one of the prescribed treatments if we allow it to work in the way it's meant to help us on a positive note. When we engage with positive content, with inspirational stories, and we avoid, now let me tell you, the dark world of the internet, it's addictive, right? So we have to recognize there's an addiction there, right? The pull is strong. Even if we're not suicidal yet, the pull to be involved, to be validated, to have the likes, to have the followers is so incredibly strong. But we have to recognize that we have to battle that with good. And like I said earlier, the highs that come with the good can overtake and conquer the pull to the lows of the negative and the evil, right? So, all right. So these are 4 stories if you count Liddy, where we can use or we can overcome the negative effects of social media, but even more than that, use social media to be a constant force for positive in our lives. And even more than that, we can begin to be a source of inspiration for others. It doesn't matter who you are, what your background is. You have the ability to make a positive difference in others. So how can we do it? I'm going to give you a very easy and simple 4-step process if you will commit yourself and begin today or tomorrow, but you'll begin today to take what I call my social media challenge so that you can reclaim your life or change the trajectory of the quality and endpoint of your life from bad to good. Here it goes. The first thing to make changes in your social media use, you're not going to hear me say, don't use it, get rid of it. But first of all, let's all take a break. Take a social media vacation for 7 days. Now, I know this is easier said than done, so you need to plan this, right? Because let me tell you, anytime you're trying to change a behavior, studies show that unless you fill that time with something meaningful, it's too easy to relapse and slip back into your old habits. So you need to plan this out. So maybe in a month from now, maybe your spring break's coming up, right? Get out, go camping, go to the beach, but maybe that's the time that you can fill the time that you would normally be on social media and get rid of it. But here's the thing, take a 7-day break. Why? A 7-day break is your chance to do what I call a digital detox, right? It's your chance to empty your brain, to get rid of all the neurotransmitters, empty the dopamine that's associated with social media use. Dopamine, if you don't know it, it's the neurotransmitter that gives us pleasure. It's the pleasure center of our brain that gets released when we're doing something we like. When you use social media and you love it and you're addicted to it, dopamine. It's the thing that keeps you coming back. Same thing with eating. Dopamine is released for good things too. But I don't want to get rid of the bad dopamine. So you need to take a 7-day break from social media to let the bad dopamine go away. And it's going to be hard for the first 24 to 48 hours. Okay. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard for the first 7 days, right? If you're worried about work and you need to get email, you need to get messages, no problem. Turn your accounts over to somebody else and they'll get you the important information that you need. Okay, fine. You can keep your email. That's fine. Even your texting, that's fine. But social media, tell everybody. Just say, hey, I'm taking a break. I'll see you all in 7 days, right? Now you're not worried because everybody knows, but take a break and plan for it. Go on a vacation, or how are you going to fill that time? If you use social media from 4 p.m. right after school till 8 p.m. at night, go to the gym, go on walks, do whatever, but you've got to fill that time with something different. Okay. All right. Step number 2, when you come back after 7 days, when you have your detox and you have a chance to reevaluate what's important in your life, by the way, I need to say that for a minute. The 7 days is meant for you just not only to detox, but to reevaluate what your true sources of happiness and satisfaction are. It's not social media. I promise you it's not. So what is it? Your family, your friends, your hobbies, your interests, your talents. And find a way to start making those things a bigger part of your life, okay? The idea is now you're here, you're at the fork. Or go to the right, follow Liddy Johnson and the others, or go to the left and find the many others that we have lost tragically to not recognizing the danger zone that they're in, okay? Now, after your 7-day vacation, you're going to come back. And the first thing that you're going to do before you even read any posts or texts that come back, you're going to be objective. You're going to go through your list of organizations that you subscribe to, friends that you have, whatever it is. And you are going to unfriend, stop following, stop subscribing, whatever it is. You're going to remove anybody, anything, or any organization that is a negative influence on your social media. Okay? You don't need them. You do not need them. You're going to get rid of them. You don't need to give them a warning. You don't need to tell them why. You just need to delete them. I'm sorry, it's not simple delete. You need to unfriend, unfollow, unsubscribe, whatever it is, you need to stop. If you think you're in too deep, start a new page, start a new profile, and only invite the good. So as well as getting the bad, you're going to keep the good and you're going to make an announcement. This is all step 2. You're going to tell people, I am making a change starting today. My change is that I want to infuse my life with good and meaningful stuff, content, stories, and I want to return the favor by sharing with you positive and good things in my life, okay? So step 2 is simple. Get rid of the bad, bring in the good, okay? Step 3 is to go beyond step number 2, and that's every single week, choose a new source of good to subscribe, friend, or follow, okay? Be on the lookout, and this should be easy, right? Because we get suggestions all the time. Choose to follow at least one positive source of good and inspiring content every week. The more that you do this, and if you set reminders, I need to add my source of good this week, you will soon, over time, over the weeks and months to come, be so inundated with warm fuzzies and happy thoughts that there will be no room for the bad on your social media. And your social media, your phone is going to be literally this white glowing source of good with a halo around it, right? That's what we all want. We want the good vibes. So choose to continue to follow good sources. And I can make a personal promise to you. Hard for me to promise a lot of things, but I will promise you that if you follow the steps so far, I can say that you will be safely on your way to road A, to the right, to the meaningful changes that need to come into your life. Okay. And step number 4, commit to posting, if not every day, at least every week, a thought, message, or tag something that is meant to inspire others. Okay? 4 steps, all in a row, really quick. Step 1, take a vacation. Digital detox. It's a must. You will not be successful if you don't. You could be, but the chances of success are higher if you just take a break and tell others about it, and then fill your time with something fun, like a vacation or something. Step number 2, immediately unfollow, get rid of any source of negative content. And yet, what if it's a friend that's constantly negative, constantly gossiping? That's a tough thing to do, isn't it? But you've got to let them know that you're changing course. You've got to let them know that you're changing course. If they're a good friend and they're just negative, tell them, listen, I'm going to give you a warning. I love you, but we need to stop with the negative stuff. I'm making a change. So if you can't post positive stuff or share positive stuff with me, you can't do it, or I have to unfriend you. Okay. Step 3, choose daily or weekly sources to follow that have positive and inspirational content. And 4, be part of the solution. Post content. I don't care if it's just a smiley emoji and tell people I'm happy today. I'm wishing you a happy thought today. It can just be something so simple, but something that's positive, so that now you join the fight in changing the trajectory of what we are doing in our social media and media in general lives, and you can be part of the solution. Please join me in being part of the army of good. Join me and help to be a source of good for others. Start these 4 steps. You never know. These changes could actually, if you think about it, could be the beginning of saving your own life. You're able to do it. I know you can do it. I invite you to do it. Hey, thanks for tuning in. I think I went a little overtime today, but thanks for tuning in. I'm grateful that you're tuning in. I'm so thankful that you're subscribing. Please share my link in your channels. Say, hey, check out this podcast. Click, link, share it. You've just fulfilled the 4th step before you even started the process. So if you truly want to change, if you truly want to be a force for good, take that bonus step I just explained. Copy the link, share the link in your channels and say, hey, check this out. I want to listen to more stuff like this. Now, here's the thing. I want to hear from you. I tell you this in every podcast. I need to hear from more of you. I know I'm a new channel. Help me out. I want you to answer this question. What have you discovered that is a source for good on your social media channels? So what is it? Is it a friend that's constantly sending you good thoughts? Is it an organization that promotes charitable acts? Is it being in touch with your grandparents, being in touch with a friend that's good? What is it that brings you positive inspiration? Or I guess all inspiration is positive. Well, what is it that brings you positive vibes and a source of inspiration? Text it to me. Drop it in the comments. Direct message me. I want to hear, because I want to share what you're going through and the solutions that you're finding. All right. Hey, don't forget, I want you to tune in next week, because I hope, if it works out right, I'm going to have this amazing guest on next week. Not going to tell you what it is yet, because it's going to be a surprise. If it's not next week, it'll be in a few weeks. But I've got an amazing guest. So please subscribe to all my channels. Follow me on, or like my Facebook page. Follow us on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're just about everywhere. But tune in and let me and my book, Life Map for Teens, whether you're an adult, a young adult, or a teen, let me be a part of the solution for you. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you next week.